Hello and welcome everyone to the Varsity Tutors StarCourse series, where we are streaming live to you through the magic of computer code. And today we are going to crack the code on coding. We've got the perfect teacher to help you do all that. We're here with Samaira Mehta, who is the founder of Coderbunnyz. Yes, 1 billion kids can code. That includes you and all kinds of other tech and entrepreneurial ventures. And she is going to talk to us about how you can learn to code, even if you're not actively coding, and also how you can learn to love to code. So with all of that, our computer programmers here at Varsity Tutors have put a lot of code into this classroom. So I want to make sure you take advantage of it. There's a chat box to the right of the screen. Samaira is going to ask you some questions to find out what you know about gaming, coding, and everything in between. Answer her questions there. Also, if you have any questions for her whatsoever throughout the class, feel free to ask those there. I'm going to compile those throughout class, and in the last 10 minutes, interview Samaira with your questions so we can get you some answers. So use that chat box early and often. Also, make sure you've got a camera nearby, because in about a half an hour, we're going to give everyone an opportunity to lean into the screen, take a selfie with Samaira. And if you do that and upload it to Instagram using their code base, you'll be entered to win a prize package that includes your very own copy of Coderbunnyz. Samaira and I each have one. We'll hold those up at some point so you can see exactly what we're talking about. You'll be entered to win that, plus an enrollment in one of the coding camps this summer with Varsity Tutors. You can learn to code through Minecraft, Roblox, JavaScript, or even the Unity gaming engine. And so you'll be able to take your pick of one of those. There's a link on your screen where you can learn a little bit more about the coding camps. But right now, we've got a little bit of a coding boot camp for you here that won't look like a normal coding camp. I'm going to turn it over to your teacher for today, Samaira Mehta, and let's learn to love coding.
Hi, I am so excited to be here today with you and share with you a little bit about how you can learn how to code and you can be a part of this amazing coding journey. So to get started, I want to actually ask you guys a question. All right, so in a moment on your screen, we are going to be seeing some images. All right, and what I would like you all to do is spot the coder. Which one of these people do you think is the coder? The first, second, third, fourth, or fifth one? All right, we already have some answers coming in. This is fantastic. But I do see that we have some more of the first ones, more of A. We have some more C's coming in, C's, or the third one. Yeah. Yeah, we have a few D's or the fourth one, but mainly the first, third, and fourth one are the most common answers that I'm seeing so far. More of the first one. Yeah, I see that we have some very different answers, but I do see some more of the first and third ones. But what if I told you that they are all coders, right? Everyone can code, including you, because the skills that you need to code are the same skills that you need to find shortcuts, solve riddles, and play board games. In fact, let me tell you a quick story that I actually encountered. So when I was 6 years old, my dad did a prank on me. He showed me something on his computer where there was one button and a command, which said, press this if you're beautiful. And he told me to give it a try. But when my mouse pointer touched this "you are beautiful" command, it just disappeared. And at first, I was like, how did you do that? Like, am I not beautiful? What's going on here? And my dad told me that he used something called coding to create this prank. And that's where my interest in coding first sparked. And so I began learning how to code myself so that I could create similar pranks and games. And in the process, I began talking to my friends about how much I was enjoying this new coding skill that I was learning. But I soon found that they didn't share the same interest as I did. They found coding hard and boring and definitely not fun. So this got me surprised. I was like, how can my friends not like something that I like so much? But this also made me determined to make sure that my friends like coding. And to do this, I took something that my friends already love, which were board games. My friends love board games. We love playing board games together with our families. And so I thought, what if I brought coding onto a board game? Wouldn't this make it fun for my friends? Right? Because they love board games, and if I can put the coding onto it, maybe they'll start liking coding too, and we can all code together and code for fun. And so that was the start to my creation, Coderbunnyz. And today we're actually going to be playing Coderbunnyz, and I'll be taking you through some of the really cool coding concepts that we learn. But before we get into that, I want to ask you guys, what is your favorite board game? Go ahead and type in the chat what your favorite board game is. Oh, there's some really cool answers coming in. Monopoly, Clue, yep, Candyland. I think someone asked if Connect 4 counts. I think Connect 4 counts. Yeah, I really love Connect 4. Chess. Yeah. Well, my favorite board game is Coderbunnyz because it's the one that I created. And I see that some people listed multiple board games, and that really just kind of proves my point. We all love board games, and board games are about using some strategy to get what you want out of a set of rules. And if you love to play board games, I will prove to you today that you are able to code too. All right, so to get started, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys and share with you guys the Coderbunnyz game board. This is the board game that I have created, and I brought it on to a virtual screen because right now everything's virtual, but this game is actually played very physically. It's a very game that you can play with your very own hands rather than something we play online. But for the sake of the virtual world, we have made Coderbunnyz virtual. All right, so let me get started by explaining you some of the basic rules of how Coderbunnyz work. And then we can get into explaining you some of the really cool coding concepts and different parts and aspects of coding that you learn throughout playing Coderbunnyz. All right, so the objective of the game. We have this little bunny over here, all right, this green bunny. The goal is to help our green bunny eat its green carrot and then reach the destination. And to do this, we are going to actually be using 4 different, very important coding concepts. All right, so we need to get our bunny from here at the start to the carrot and then afterwards to the destination. And to help us do this, we have something called code cards. And you can see our code cards are right over here on the bottom of the screen. We have the move forward, turn left, turn right, and jump code cards. We also have a function code card, and we have some repeat loop code cards. All right, so let's get started with some very basic movement. All right, we want to get our bunny from here to here. But one thing you might see along the path are these little puddles and these fences. So to give you some more context, if there's a puddle, you have to use your jump card to jump over the puddle. But when there's a fence, it's too high for the poor bunny to jump over. So the bunny has to try to find a way to go around it. All right, so hopefully you guys understand the mechanics of how the game works, but if you don't worry about it at all. We're going to continue playing and hopefully it'll make some sense to you then. All right, so let's get started. I think the first movement our bunny should do is use this move forward code card, allowing our bunny to move 1 square forward. Then use our turn right code card to turn our bunny in the direction right, just like that. All right, so now from here, I want my bunny to go 1, 2, 3, 4 steps forward, just like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. To do this, I will have to use my move forward card 4 times. It's a bit repetitive. Don't you think that is a lot more effort for us, especially because it's the same task that needs to be executed over and over again? Well, don't worry, I have a solution for you. And this solution is something called repeat loops. And repeat loops allow us to execute a certain task over and over again as many times as we want. So if you look over here on the bottom of our screen, we have these code cards. We have this repeat code card. So this is a repeat 2 code card. We have the repeat 3 code card. And beneath it, we have the repeat 4 code card. Now we want our bunny to go forward 4 times. So we're going to go ahead and write that code right over here. All right, repeat 4 forward. So now with just 2 cards, our bunny is going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 steps forward. And isn't it just so much more easier to do than having to write out 4 move forward cards literally 4 times? It might look like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, just like that. Right? So which one is easier? This first one where you just repeat 1 card 4 times, or the second one where you have to write out 4 cards over and over again. Definitely the first one, right? And this is a coding concept called repeat loops. All right, and one thing I want to tell you guys is how this repeat loops connect back to our real coding, how this is used in real computer code. All right, so have you guys ever used platforms like maybe Spotify or Apple Music? So has it ever happened to you when you get obsessed with just one song and you just want to keep on playing it on repeat? Well, when you do that, the computer actually is executing a repeat loop that plays that song repeatedly over and over again until you stop it. I know this has for sure happened with me. I've gotten obsessed with songs and I just want to play that one song for literally the entire day. And a repeat loop actually helps make that possible. And what we just learned, that is how a repeat loop is made and how a repeat loop is used in real computer code. Isn't that so, so cool how through something like a board game, we are learning real coding? And one more thing I want to tell you guys that we've actually already learned without even knowing it is a coding concept called sequencing. And sequencing is essentially very simple. It's just a series of steps that you use to help you achieve a certain task. So right now, our goal is to help our bunny get from here to the carrot. That is our goal. And the movements that we are doing with our bunny to help us achieve this goal is sequencing. Isn't that so simple yet so cool? All right, let's continue on with the game. So now we're here, and let's see, to get to our puddle, I would like to go ahead and turn left. So we can use this turn left code card right over here to help our bunny turn left, just like that. There we go. All right. And if you remember what I just told you guys a few minutes ago, when we encounter a puddle, our bunny has to jump over it. Because if you go forward, you'll walk right into the puddle and the poor bunny will get wet. We definitely don't want that to happen. And plus, jumping actually gives us some special powers because we're basically skipping a square. Isn't that kind of cool? All right, so to do this, we're actually going to use something called conditionals or if statements. And if statements, you can think of them as cause and effect. If something happens, if something is true, then another task is executed. So if something happens and something else happens, otherwise something else happens. And basically, to give you guys some more understanding of how that works, is if there is a puddle or if puddle, we can use our jump card to jump over the puddle. Else, we keep on going. You see how it's a cause and effect statement? The cause was that there was a puddle, and the effect was us having to jump over the puddle. And that's exactly how an if statement works. And then we have the if else statement, and that's basically just if there's a cause, then there's the effect. Else or otherwise, then there's another effect if that cause is not true. So in this example, if there was no puddle, then our bunny just needs to keep on going forward. And there we have it. We've already learned 3 super important coding concepts through a board game: sequencing, loops, and conditionals. Now let's actually cover one more. All right, so have you, for those of you guys who have younger siblings, I know I personally have a younger brother. You know, many of you guys may have encountered times where your parents have asked you to maybe let your younger sibling win so that they don't get discouraged or demotivated and, so that they can win and they can be happy because they're the younger sibling. And so what we're going to actually do right now is we're going to do that. We're going to let our younger sibling make some progress throughout the game. And we're just sort of going to be making no progress ourselves. So let's say my younger brother, for example, maybe some of you guys have younger sisters, whoever your younger sibling is, let's say they were the blue. All right, let's say they're making their own progress in their own way, but maybe they're not as caught up as you are. So what we want us to do is we want to just sort of do a repetitive movement. That's not actually going to help us make any progress, but it's going to help our younger sibling make some progress. And so what we're going to be doing is we're just going to keep on going, as you can see where my mouse pointer is moving right now, in this sort of square motion where we're actually going to make no progress. We're just going to keep on going just like this. All right. And so to do that, what we need to do is go forward, forward, and then turn our bunny left. Forward, forward, and turn our bunny left. Forward, forward, and then again, turn our bunny left. And forward, forward, turn our bunny left. once again, isn't that just so much work for us? We have to keep on playing the forward, forward, left cards over and over and over again. What if there was a way to make that simpler, where all we have to do was play one card and all of those tasks would be executed? Well, lucky for you, there is a way that through code we can make that possible. And the way that we do this is through something called functions. All right, so we have this F card over here. This card is what we're going to use to create a function. All right, so we can create a function right over here, and we can put in these 3 cards and under the function. So we have the forward, and then we have the left, just like that. All right, so now under this one function card, we have 3 movements. So now every time that it is my turn, I'm just going to play that one function card. So I can do whatever I want on the side. My brother will continue to make progress. And I actually don't have to use much brain. I don't have to put in much effort. I'm just going to keep on playing the function card. Although I won't be making any progress, my younger sibling will be. And that's sort of what we're trying to do right now, right? Help our younger sibling make some progress. And so think about how efficient this is. We have just one function card, another function card, and just with these 2 cards in itself, look how much progress we're going to make. All right, we're going to go forward, forward, left, right? That's what one function is equal to. So with one function card, we go forward, forward, left. Then with the second function card, we're going to go ahead and repeat that same movement, forward, forward, left. And so basically, in just 2 cards, we went all the way from here to over here. And although, we made no real progress, we have to put in much effort to do this. And that is the whole point of functions, to take a redundant task, put it into, make it into a function, and then just keep on calling that same function over and over and over again. And as you can tell, that helps us. All we had to do was play these 2 cards. We didn't have to put in much effort, use much brain, but we are still moving along in the game. And that is exactly the point of functions. Let me give you a real world example, actually, of how functions are used. All right, so functions, have you guys ever used a, let's say, robot vacuum, right? And you want to vacuum the outskirts of your rug or your carpet. Well, did you know that functions are actually used to make that possible? Yep, with simple actions, just like maybe move forward 7 feet, then turn left and move forward 5 feet. And taking this and putting it into a function and executing it repeatedly, our robot vacuums the rectangular part of our carpet. And that is exactly how functions are used in our daily lives, just like our robot vacuum does. And so something you just learned in Coderbunnyz is now applied in real technology and is used in real code. And I also want to give you guys the example of the if statements. Remember we talked about those earlier when we had a puddle, if puddle jump, right? Let me give you a real life example of that one as well. Have you guys ever used a calculator? Well, if you've ever used a calculator, to add 2 numbers, you have to use a plus symbol. To subtract them, you have to use the minus, and so on and so forth. Well, as you do this, did you know that your computer is actually, or your phone or your device is actually executing if statements? For example, a simple if statement could be, if the plus symbol is pressed, then add the 2 numbers. Else, if the minus symbol is pressed, subtract the 2 numbers, and so on and so forth with multiply, divide, and everything else. And that is how functions and if-else statements are used in our daily lives. Isn't that so cool? And real technology, and we are learning how all of this real technology is used through something as simple and as fun as a board game. And that was my whole intention when I started out, to make stuff that is actually used in real code, made simple and easy through a board game. All right, so let's continue executing our functions to let our younger sibling make some progress, right? That was the goal. Let's continue doing that. We're going to continue moving our bunny. All right, and now we believe our younger sibling has made enough progress, so let's continue on with our own game. All right, so what we're going to go ahead and do is, remember, our objective was to eat the carrot. So we're going to go ahead and use the if statement, go ahead and jump over the puddle. We're going to use our turn right card to turn our bunny right. And then we're going to use our move forward card to help our bunny eat the carrot. Yay, we have achieved our goal number 1. Fantastic job, everybody, and thank you for helping me along in this process. All right, so now I want to set another goal for you guys. All right, and this is a challenge that I want you guys to help me achieve. Okay, so right now we all know that the next step is to help our bunny get to the destination. But I want to change it up for you guys. I want to make something a little different. From here, our goal is to help our bunny get to this trophy, this green trophy right on the bottom of our screen. All right, so we're going to go ahead and turn our bunny right real quick. And from here, I want you guys to go ahead and type in the chat how you think you can go from here to here in just one line of code. All right, and I can give you guys a hint. This is actually going to involve both functions and if statements. All right, both functions and if statements to help us go from here to here in just one line of code. Let's see if you guys can do that. We're already having some fantastic answers come in, and I love seeing it. But yeah, let me give you guys just a few more seconds to think, and I want you guys to see if this was your challenge. Your bunny is currently facing in this direction. Your goal is to get from this point to the green trophy in just one line of code. How do you think that you would do that? All right, so now it's time for the reveal and the solution. All right, so it's, as I said, it's going to involve both if statements and loops. All right, so this is going to be a little tricky, but if you've understood everything we've done so far, I think it should make some sense. All right, so basically what we're going to do is we're going to have our bunny repeatedly move forward, all right, until it reaches the trophy. So in code, this would sound like, unless you have reached the trophy, keep on going forward. All right, so if trophy equal not reached, then keep on just moving forward. But all right, so that's a repeat loop, right? We want to keep on just going forward and repeatedly go forward until we reach the trophy. But we have one obstacle, as you can tell, in the middle. This is a puddle, right? And so what we have with the puddle is we have to actually add in another little if statement in the middle of our little loop. So keep on going forward. Yes, repeatedly go forward until you've reached the trophy. But then if you encounter a puddle, you have to use your jump card to jump over it. So how essentially this is going to work is it's going to be a repeat loop. Keep on going forward until you reach the trophy. And then inside of this loop, there's going to be another if statement. If you encounter a puddle, jump over it. Else, keep on going forward until you've reached the trophy. And that's what it's going to look like. I'm just going to allow my bunny to keep on going forward. Oops, we hit a puddle. Let's go ahead and jump over it and keep on going forward. Yeah, helped our bunny reach the trophy. Thank you to everybody in the chat who has helped me achieve this fantastic goal. And I want you guys to think about it. Isn't that so fantastic? We literally learned 4 major coding concepts right now, and we just used some of them to help us achieve this challenge. We learned how they connected back to real technology that we use and how this can actually be taught through something as simple as a board game. So as a recap, the 4 main concepts that we learned, one was sequencing, which is just a series of steps that we need to do to help our bunny or whatever it is achieve a certain goal. We learned about loops. Loops are when you take a certain task that are repetitive and you just keep on repeating it over and over again using something like a loop card that we did over here. The third thing we learned about were if statements or conditionals. And these were things you could think of as cause and effect. If there was, for example, a puddle, we jumped over it. And although in this adventure, we did not encounter a fence, if we did encounter a fence, what we would have to do is we would have to go around it, use our turning and forward cards to go around it. And finally, the 4th and last concept that we learned was about functions. And functions are when you take a set of tasks that you think you're going to use over and over again in your code, and you put it into one function. So then all you have to do is keep on drawing that one card, and all of the tasks underneath them will continue to be executed. All right, and that's it. That was Coderbunnyz. So now I think it's just about time that we move on to writing real computer code. We understood concepts, but now we need to move on to real computer code. So now, as you will be seeing on the screen in just a moment, I want to actually ask you guys a question. When you play rock, papers, and scissors, or rock, paper, scissors, what is your favorite tool to reuse? Do you guys enjoy using rock the most? Do you feel like you use paper the most? Or do you feel like you use scissors the most? Go ahead and type it in the chat, and I'm really excited to see all of your responses. We have some people saying that they enjoy using rock the most. Yes. Scissors. Paper. Yeah, you guys have pretty much mentioned all of them. And we see a mix of three, but I think one thing I did see was we had rock showing up, more than others. I see some of you guys really enjoy using rock more than the other tools. So we see that rock is really popular, and I've heard that in other places too. But what if we wanted to prove whether rock really does win more often than the other two? Or that our best bet is to play paper more often because we think people are more likely to pick rock? Well, we could play, let's say, 300 games of rock, paper, scissors to test it. But isn't that kind of repetitive? Isn't that sort of against everything we've learned so far? We've learned to take tasks and make them efficient through code. So what we can do is we can use our coding skills to have the computer play the game for us 300 times. And so in just a matter of seconds, we can see which tool actually wins when used more often. Doesn't that sound like a pretty cool project, right? We always have a normal rock, paper, scissors. We can play that 300 times to see which one is most efficient or which one wins the most, or we can have our computer do that for us. So then, meanwhile, we can be playing Coderbunnyz or Connect Four or chess or Monopoly, whatever your guys' favorite board game was that we talked about earlier. So we can have the computer do the hard work for us, and we can just enjoy the results. And we can, just be playing games or whatever you want in the background, but have the computer do the hard work for us. Doesn't that sound fun? Well, that's exactly what we are going to be creating today. That's exactly what we're going to be creating right now. So let me go ahead and share my screen real quick, and I will show you guys how we can actually put together this game. Fantastic. All right, so right now I'm just on a website called repl.it or repl.it. And if you guys want, you can follow along as we do this. You can go ahead and write your code with me on your very own computer screen, or you can just, follow along as I teach. And this recording will be available for you guys to view again on the Varsity Tutors YouTube page. So you guys can go ahead and view it again and write down the real code and actually make it work for you afterwards. And maybe you can just follow along and understand the real code right now. You can do whichever one you would like. But if you do want to follow along, the website is repl.it, repl.it. All right, let's get started. So I'm just going to go ahead and explain the code that we need to create to make this possible. But before we get to that, I want you guys to see, do you see all the green text that we see on the screen? Well, this green text is something that we call comments. And comments are, lines of code that we put in that aren't exactly executed as lines of code. You can think of them as like putting sticky notes on our code so we can come back to it, and let's say we don't know what a certain code means, or we want to write in maybe just something to remember on a sticky note and then put that on our code. Well, comments actually help us do that. You can think of comments as putting little sticky notes onto your code for maybe things you want to remember or things you want to look back on. And I've added little sticky notes or comments onto our code explaining how all of this code actually just connects back to what we did in Coderbunnyz. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and start by explaining this. The first thing we see on the screen over here in the real code is the import random. And I want you guys to think of the import random as really just scattering the puddles and fences around the Coderbunnyz board, right? Without the puddles and the fences on the Coderbunnyz board, well then where's the fun of the game? That's all just sort of lost, right? So it is a tool that helps us get started. And importing the random is going to be something very, very helpful. And we're going to actually be talking about that in just a moment. But for now, you can think of it as sort of the tool that helps us get started, like scattering the puddles and the fences around the Coderbunnyz board. All right, so now remember the objective of the game or the objective of the code that we are creating is to see which rock, paper, scissors tool wins the most times, right? When executed the most amount of times. All right. So to do this, we need to first of all ask the user, which tool do you want to check? Which tool do you want to check wins the most? And so that is exactly what line 6 does over here. We ask the user, all right, which one do you want? Rock, paper, or scissors? And then whatever their answer is, we take it. Let's say I put in rock, because that's what you guys were wanting, we were saying the most. So let's say I take rock and I put it into a bucket. All right. And now I'm going to name this bucket something called user input. And that's what we're doing. So we are asking, first of all, the user, all right, which tool do you want to test, rock, paper, or scissors? And we're taking their answer and we're putting it into a bucket and we're storing it in this bucket. And this bucket is something called variables. And we actually haven't learned about variables yet in Coderbunnyz. But variables, you can really think of them as buckets that store information. And for now, our bucket's name is user input, and it's storing the information whether you chose rock, paper, or scissors. All right, and now if we want to connect this back to Coderbunnyz, you can think of it as asking, which code card do you want to play? Remember, we had different options, move forward, turn left, turn right, jump, functions, and loop cards. Well, right now we're asking the user, all right, well, which one of these code cards do you want to play? You know, which one do you think would be most efficient for you to play? And that's exactly what asking this question on line number 6 is like. All right, let's move on to line number 9. Line number 9 is actually very similar to line number 6, but you can think of this as which specifically loop card do you want to pick in Coderbunnyz. All right, so if you remember in Coderbunnyz, we had 3 different loop cards, repeat 2, repeat 3, and repeat 4. And so that's exactly what we're doing right now. We're asking the user, how many times do you want to test this game? All right, for example, I gave you the example, we want to test out this game 300 times, or 500 times, or 1,000 times, or 10,000 times. It doesn't matter because the computer will still execute it in the minute, in literally just seconds, in the period of just seconds. So you put in whatever number you want, and the computer will test out your rock, paper, scissors game that many times. So in Coderbunnyz, we only have the option of 2, 3, and 4. But in real code, we can go all the way up to 10,000, a million if that's what you want. All right? And that is the power of code. That is how much you don't even have to do any of the math in this. The computer is doing it all for you. All right, so line number 9, as I've said, is very similar to line number 6. You're taking in the answer, how many times you want to test out the game, and you're putting it into another bucket. We're calling this bucket loop count, right? And remember, if you remember, these buckets are also known as variables in real code. All right, moving on to line 12 through 14. We have some more variables. We have tie, computer win, or comp win, as stated on line 13, and user win. And at the moment, we have set them all to 0. But as our game goes on and we test out rock, paper, scissors, sometimes you'll have a tie. And so you want to increase the amount of times you have had a tie to 1 or 2. Or let's say you play rock, paper, scissors against the computer and the computer wins. So you need to increase the computer win score. Or the user wins. You need to increase the user win score. And that is what these lines are for. So you're just sort of setting up the basics right now, just saying, all right, we want to just set them all to 0 right now. But as our game goes on, we're going to have to increase that. All right. And now over here, we've had another variable sort of thing going on, where we've created another variable called times to repeat, and we've set that equal to loop count. So the amount of times that you need to repeat this code is the same thing as loop count. And you guys may be wondering, well, why can't we just put in loop count? Why do we have to actually create another variable called times to repeat? We'll be actually getting to that towards the end of the code, but it's really important that our code is structured just like this. All right, so now we're going over here to line number 20. All right, so this is essentially your loop. Your loop is all the way from line 20 to line number 50. That is what the loop is. And I know what you guys are thinking. What? Like in Coderbunnyz, we only had like maximum of 4 things we could put into, 1 thing we put in our loop that was just a forward card, and we repeat that 4 times maximum. What is all this going on? Don't worry, I'll also be explaining all of that as well. All right, but it's actually very simple. Basically, you can think of it as what you learn in Coderbunnyz, that is just scaled to a very larger level when you do real computer programming. All right, so To write a repeat loop, we use something called a while. All right, so while our times to repeat is greater than 0, we want to keep on repeating this code. So at the end of our repeat loop, we subtract 1 from the times to repeat. So let's say I've set the times to repeat to be 300. Well, once I've executed the entire loop, it becomes 299. So we go back, all right, we execute it again, then it becomes 298. We have 298 times we need to repeat the code. And this just keeps on happening until it goes all the way to 0. All right, so let's go on to line number 22. And this is where we are letting the computer choose which tool it wants to use. Does the computer pick rock? Does it pick paper? Or does it pick scissors? And to do that, we have the computer choose a random number between 1 and 3. 1 is rock, 2 is paper, and 3 is scissors. And so we're having the computer choose a completely random number between 1 and 3, and we're giving 1 is paper. If they choose 2, it's 1 is rock, 2 is paper, and 3 is scissors. So whatever the computer chooses, it has a real tool that corresponds to the number. And so if you remember over here in the beginning of the code, we wrote this import random. Well, because we wrote in this import random, now the computer gets to choose a random number. If we never had import random, then our computer would not be able to choose a random number between 1 and 3. So as you can tell, it was really important. It was really helping us get started, set the grounds. And that's why we had this import random. So now our computer can choose a completely random tool between rock, paper, or scissors, or 1, 2, and 3. All right, and now we're going to compare what you put in, whether you chose in rock, paper, or scissors, and compare that to what the computer chose, whether the computer chose rock, paper, or scissors. And to do that, we have a bunch of if statements. And as I've said, right, when you play Coderbunnyz, you learn the coding concepts. And then when you go on to the real computer to do real computer programming, that's just Coderbunnyz scaled onto a way larger level. So you basically already know what's going on if you understand how to play Coderbunnyz. All right, so if you remember the if statements that we did, if there was a puddle, we jumped, else we kept on going. Remember those cause and effects we talked about a bit earlier? Well, that's exactly what's going on right over here from line number 29 to line number 48. A bunch of cause and effect statements. So I'm just going to go ahead and explain this first 3 statements, but the rest of these statements are the exact same thing. Of course, not the exact same thing, but the concept behind them are the exact same. All right, so let me go ahead and explain these three blocks real quick. We have the if the user input equals rock. All right, if you remember up here, we chose between rock, paper, and scissors, right? And then we had a bucket that stored this information, which one we picked, whether it was rock, paper, or scissors. And we named this bucket user input. Well, now we're using the information in this bucket right over here. So if whatever we chose is equal to rock, if we chose rock, and the computer also chose rock, or the computer tool is 1, and as I've written over here in the comments, 1 is basically rock. So if I chose rock, if the user, me, chose rock, and the computer also chose rock, well, that's a tie, right? Rock against rock, no one wins, it's just a tie. So the score of the tie goes up by 1. And if this keeps on happening, the tie becomes 2 and 3 and 4 and so forth, just like that. And then we have another if statement. If, let's say, I put in paper, but the computer put in rock, well, paper beats rock, as most of you guys know. So I win, the user wins, and my score goes up by 1. So the user win it goes up by 1. Whatever the current score was, it increases. And then we have one more statement. If I put in scissors and the computer put in rock, well, rock beats scissors, so the computer won for this one. So the computer score, or the computer win score, increases by 1. All right, hopefully that makes some sense, because it was basically just like we did in Coderbunnyz. If there was a puddle, we jumped. Otherwise, we kept on going. Similarly, let's say if I chose rock and computer chose rock, well, that's a tie. So the tie score increases by 1. So it's basically everything we learned in Coderbunnyz just scaled onto a bit of a larger level. And that's basically similarly what happens in line 36 through 41, and then 43 to 48. All right, hopefully this is starting to make some sense for you guys. All right, and then we have this line number 50 over here, and I've already sort of explained what this is, but it is basically just saying, once you've executed all of this, we want to lower the amount of times you will have to repeat by 1. So we started with 300 times to repeat. Now we have 299 times to repeat. And then we have 298 times to repeat, all the way until we have 0 times to repeat, because then we know we have tried it all 300 times that the user has asked us to. And right over here is where our loop ends. So it's basically the loops we learned in Coderbunnyz scaled onto a much larger level is how it is in computer code. All right, and so if you remember right over here, we have some scores, right? The tie, we have maybe, let's say 90 ties. We have 110 times the user won and 100 times the computer won. Well, the computer knows this information, but we don't want the computer to just keep all this information to itself. We wanted to publicly display them so that we know how many times, the computer has won, how many times we've won, and how many times it's been a tie. And so to do this, we use something called print statements. And print statements help us just publicly display information or text onto the screen. All right, so we're just printing out a few things right now. First, we need to print what did the user choose. All right, so just we want to make sure so that you know what you chose. Let's say I chose rock. So all it's going to say over here is you chose, and then remember the variable we created all the way up here, user input? Well, that's all we're displaying over here. You chose rock. And then we have this next print statement over here saying when you chose, or when rock, or whatever you chose, rock or paper or scissors, was played against the computer 300 times, you tied with the computer, and then we want to display. All right, we have a variable called tie. It holds how many times we've tied in the game. It's a little bucket, it holds in the information. We want to display all the times we've tied. Then you tied these many times, lost to the computer. Similarly, we have a bucket called computer win, and we want to display that. You've lost to the computer these many times, or the computer has won these many times, and you personally or the user has won these many times. And now you're just publicly displaying that information onto the screen. And so the reason that we have to do, as you can tell over here, str comp win or str tie or str user input is number one, what you chose. Let's say we have the str user input over here. Let's say we just replaced it with rock. When rock was played against the computer 300 times, well, what if I chose paper, right? You're kind of just telling me the wrong thing. I didn't choose rock, I chose paper. And so we want that to constantly update. And because we want that to constantly update based off what the user chooses, we just put in the variable. So whatever you chose, I'm just going to tell you that so that there are no mistakes and you make sure that things are displayed properly. All right, so now we have this, and now we just added a little extra bit of code to tell you the percentage of time that you won. So let's say I put in rock, and I'm confident that rock wins 33.3% of the time, one third of the time. Well, I get to now know that. Then I just get to say, all right, well, rock or whatever the user input was, won, and then percentage of the time. And over here on line 60, I wrote a little formula to help me find the percentage of time that I won. I store this into a variable called percentage, and now on line 61, sorry, my bad, all I'm doing is publicly displaying that. You have the percentage of time you won. The computer knows that. We don't want the computer to keep that information to itself. We want it to be shown on the screen so that we, as the users, know. And so this is all that line 61 is doing. It's printing the percentage of time that you won. And that's it, guys. We've just created that rock, paper, scissors game to find out which tool wins the most percent of the time, or wins the most. And all we can do now is click run to see if our program works. So we have rock, paper, scissors. Which one do you want to choose? I think one thing we commonly agreed on was that rock is our favorite tool. So I'm going to go ahead and type in rock over here. Going to click enter. All right, how many times do you want to test the game? I want to test the game 300 times. And right now, when I click enter, in the period of just seconds, the computer is going to execute this rock, paper, scissors game 300 times. Whereas imagine if you had to play 300 games of rock, paper, scissors with your friend, imagine how long that would take. Well, now our computer is just doing it for us. So I'm going to click enter right over here. All right, so remember, we chose rock. When rock was played against the computer 300 times, you tied with the computer 92 times, lost to the computer 97 times, and won 111 times. So the rock won 37% of the time. And we thought it won around, 33.3% of the time, or one third of the time. And this is fairly close, fairly close. Um, and so there we have it. This is our little game that we have created using the power of code to find out which percentage of time or how many times a certain tool wins in rock, paper, scissors. And that was a coding project that we created. And so to give you guys a little recap, we have learned 4 major coding concepts, and we've used mainly all of them to create a real computer program, guys. Today, you all became official coders because, if you like playing games or if you like finding shortcuts, you have critical coding skills. All right. And this is all the skills that you need to be a coder. And I truly believe that anyone, you guys, anybody can be a coder. There's no requirement that needs to be met to be a coder. You don't need to be a certain age or a certain gender or anything. Anybody and everybody can be coders. All right. I hope you guys have enjoyed everything we have done so far. And thank you so much for listening to me and staying with me.
Hey, thank you so much. That was a whole lot of fun. I think as any of us that enjoy games, got a chance to play games, got to use our gaming strategy and learn what it takes to be coders. So that's really amazing. All right, we promised. So get those cameras ready that everybody have a chance to lean into the screen and get a picture with a real entrepreneur, tech visionary, all those kind of things. So I got to duck off in a second to make sure you guys get that picture directly with Samaira. Remember, if you do that and get your photo up on Instagram, tag Coderbunnyz and Varsity Tutors, you'll be entered to win a spot in a Varsity Tutors coding camp where you can learn by playing games. You can do it with Minecraft, Roblox, JavaScript gaming, or Unity gaming. So we've got all those camps this summer. And you'll be entered to win a copy of Coderbunnyz. And I've got to tell you, I've got mine right here, and it is amazing. So make sure you guys give it a chance there. So I'm going to turn it back to you, Samaira. Let's make sure we get everybody a chance to get those pictures. I'll put you on full screen and say Coderbunnyz, everybody, right?
Yeah, everybody, go ahead and say Coderbunnyz. Or we can put little bunny ears up behind us. You can see that through my virtual background. My little bunny ears. All right.
All right, I think we got good pictures. I think you guys may have gotten a picture with me for about 10 seconds there too. So to my mom out there watching, you're welcome. And then I think it was the bunny ears that did it, Samaira. If you guys didn't get the exact picture you want, we'll have Samaira on full screen when she's answering your questions. You guys had some really amazing questions, and so let's dig into those. Keep them coming as you have them. So first one for you, what's it like creating a game? You just kind of came up with a game out of nowhere. What's that like? How did you go about doing it? And what lessons do you have for anyone that might want to create a game of their own someday?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic question. And I think for me, I never set out to create a game. I never set out to even be an entrepreneur. I never even set out to, become a coder, really. All I really just wanted to do was create similar pranks and games like my dad originally played on me. And then as I started learning code to be able to create that, I fell in love with the process of creating code. I found it so interesting, so entertaining, and just so cool. And over time, I started talking to my friends. I was like, hey, have you guys ever, tried coding? Do you guys enjoy it? Do you want to maybe code some projects together? And all of my friends thought coding was boring. And so if they thought coding was boring, well, that doesn't mean we couldn't code. That means, we cannot code projects together. And that made me sort of cry. So I think the idea to create Coderbunnyz really just came out of the problem that I was facing. The fact that my friends did not enjoy coding and that I wanted to make sure that they enjoyed it so that we can code our games together. So that's really how I really just got the idea and just started the process of a board game creation. As I've said, and I never really set out to even create a board game to be an entrepreneur. I just set out to solve a problem that I was facing. And in terms of the process of creating a board game, right, it was definitely something really new because it's definitely not something anybody in my family has experience with, and even me, a 6, 7-year-old, I definitely had no experience with it. So it was definitely so much learning in the process of board game creation. It really just started out with me creating rough sketches, creating prototypes, drawing stuff out, maybe using the very minimal graphic design skills I had as a 6, 7-year-old to create some prototypes and some rough copies. And then over time, my parents actually helped me get in contact with some graphic designers from all across the world who helped brought my drawings and visions and really just ideas to a reality. And then from there, we had some lots of email exchange, video calls. We then over time, over the period of over a year, got the first Coderbunnyz copy. And it was so, so amazing seeing something that just started out as a Saturday afternoon project of me just drawing rough sketches had come to be a real physical board game here in my hand. And now it's helping so many kids across the world learn how to code, and it's helping so many kids make coding that's something they thought was originally boring and make it fun. So it's just so crazy seeing something that started out as something I was just doing for fun to make coding fun for my friends has now impacted the lives of so many people. And it has been truly such an amazing journey, and I've learned so much in the process.
That is such a cool story. I almost didn't want to ask because it'll make at least the parents in the room feel a little bad. But how old were you when Coderbunnyz when you first started working on it and when it first came out? How old were you?
Yeah, I was 6 years old when I was first introduced to coding. I was around 7 years old when I began creating rough sketches or prototypes of Coderbunnyz, and I was about 8.5 years old when Coderbunnyz was launched.
So no matter how old you are out there, you can change the world. You can create good, cool products. And the other thing I like you saying about, so many coders become coders because they want to solve a problem. They want to make something more efficient. They see something that it's a repetitive task they don't want to do over and over again, or they see a problem and find a way to solve it. For you, it was your friends didn't like coding. For Sergey and Larry with Google, it was like, hey, there's got to be a better way to get there's so many things on the internet. Let's get the best stuff out in front of you. Or, coded WhatsApp. It was like, why are we, paying 10 cents a minute for phone calls? We should be able to do this quickly. It's people finding ways to solve problems, make things more efficient. Like, we did with both of our game and coding challenges today. So I think those are great examples. All right, another important one is Coderbunnyz didn't exist when you learned to code. What were some of your first coding projects? What kind of things did you use to code, and kind of what made you fall in love with it?
Right. So when I was 6 years old and my dad introduced me to coding, he actually first got me started with a website called code.org. And this still remains one of my favorite platforms to learn how to code today. I think it's such a simple platform. And there's so much that you can use to, sort of get started into your coding journey with code.org. One of my favorite features was the block-based programming. I really liked how, you weren't really writing code, but you kind of like were writing code. So you just had to drag and drop in blocks and put it together, and you could create really cool projects that you could create with real computer code. And it was sort of teaching me how that coding is applied, how that coding is made. They had little if statement blocks and little repeat blocks, and I really liked that. And I really liked how they were all really friendly to some 6-year-old like me and didn't, make coding super intimidating. So code.org, I think, is probably one of my favorite tools. And then Scratch has also been one of my favorites. I think, again, with the block-based programming sort of theme has been really great. You can create so many cool projects with it. It almost gives you, what you can do with real, code that you type up. You can do similar things with platforms like Scratch. So I think that's really cool. So I think the platforms that I used to get started were things like code.org and Scratch. But then, of course, there's so many amazing tutorials and platforms out there that you can help further your coding knowledge once you, have the basics down, and I think those have really helped me as well.
Thank you. It's really cool to see. There's so many other things that, great tools out there. One amazing thing about coding is how so much open source out there. If you want to find how to do something, most good coders I know just mention like, oh, I just Googled that. Like once I'm, I asked the world, and they help me out with it. So it's such a cool collaborative group of people. So, all right, one other question. Not everybody had that. It came to my mind. I was so glad to see other people ask it. We were talking about repeat loops, and you mentioned Spotify, and so a lot of people wanted to know what songs get the most repeat loops on your phone.
Oh, That is a great question. I really like a variety of songs. I think one of my favorite artists recently has been Olivia Rodrigo. I really like her songs. And then some songs that I really like in more of the summer theme, it's definitely been Watermelon Sugar by Harry Styles. That's also one of my favorites. But yeah, those are just some of my favorite songs.
No, sorry to put you on the spot with that one every once in a while, because everybody has the repeat loop on their phone. It's kind of embarrassing. I hope people don't know that that's we get that end of the year, your top most played songs. There's a little bit of, is anybody else watching me when I see this? But then there's others you're proud of and you want everybody else to know it. So I had to put you on the spot there, but I know it's a great analogy. That's how repeat loops work. And it's kind of an if else too, right? If she doesn't put on something else, she probably wants to hear Watermelon Sugar this summer. Hey, one other for you. What other projects are you working on? You're a serial entrepreneur. I know you've got, yes, 1 billion kids can code. A lot of people are asking about, digital versions of Coderbunnyz coming out. Tell us what other projects you're working on and what you're learning from them.
Yeah, for sure. So I think to address that first question for the digital copies of Coderbunnyz, so what I showed you guys today, I basically took a board game and I sort of made it digital, but this is not publicly available. And one of my biggest goals is to keep Coderbunnyz as a board game and not make it digital. And the reason behind this is a variety of things. Number one being board games, physical board games, things that you can actually touch have so many benefits that online things don't have. To just give you a few examples, you play board games with your friends, your family, people you enjoy being around. And, in that you get to you experience so much happiness with them. And, so many skills are learned, communication, teamwork, collaboration, all of these things are gained from playing with friends and family. And these are not always gained when you play something virtually, play something online. And then, one more thing was with kinesthetic learning. Studies have shown that when you physically touch things, you are 10 times more likely to actually remember them. So when you physically touch a card, physically touch a token, and physically move stuff around a board, when you go onto the computer and do real computer coding, you will be a lot more likely to remember it because you physically touched it. And that really helps your brain remember things better. So I don't plan on making my games virtual or online anytime soon because of all of the benefits of a physical board game. But then in terms of my future projects and projects that I'm working on right now, as Brian said, one of my main projects has been Yes, 1 Billion Kids Can Code. And Yes, 1 Billion Kids Can Code is a big mission of mine to help 1 billion kids around the world gain access to computer programming tools. Because I truly believe, if you couldn't tell already, I love coding and I love computer programming. But I also really just think of it as a superpower for the future generation. There are so many problem-solving skills that you learn as you code. And I know that not every student will choose to become a professional coder when they grow, but I truly believe that even a basic coding understanding will help make you better thinkers, better leaders, and better problem solvers for the future generation. So this is a big project that I'm working on right now, along with others, such as my Entrepreneurship Academy, BossBiz. BossBiz is a 1.5 week long innovation and entrepreneurship workshop that I run, where I share with you the processes behind creating a business and becoming an entrepreneur right from the basics. And then by the end of this program, they get to pitch their business idea to win prizes like $3,000 to make their ideas and visions a reality. So the third BossBiz actually just ended 2 days ago, and it's been an amazing process. And I think these are some of my favorite projects that I've been just working on recently.
I love how you say some of your favorite projects. It's exhausting just listening, but also inspirational. So, hey, thank you so much for what you're doing. I know Coderbunnyz, you can get on Amazon, Walmart, it's kind of in all the major retailers. So if anyone's interested, this isn't a paid advertisement for a school game worth checking out. Hopefully you got inspired to do that today. Yes, 1 billion kids can code. You heard it from Samaira that there aren't that many more kids than 1 billion. So she means you, and make sure, hopefully you learned some great lessons today about, loops and functions and conditionals that will help you make your life more efficient, help you become stronger problem solvers, allow you to code and help change the world for the better. So Samaira, huge thanks to you for amazing insight and for creating a game. It's so fun to play and so educational. Thanks to everyone out there for participating. It was so fun watching everyone kind of put together their code to try to get to that trophy in in basically one card play and all of that. And for all of your amazing questions and everything. As promised, we've got the rules to be able to win the selfie contest up here. So you can get a copy of Coderbunnyz. You can enroll in a Varsity Tutors coding camp for free if you don't win the contest, or if you just want to get started as soon as Monday. Check out varsitytutors.com. We've got some amazing coding camps to learn through playing games, just like Samaira talked about. So thanks to all of you. We'll see everybody back here soon. Thanks, Samaira. I know you're going to be coming back later in the fall, and have a great night, everybody.
Thank you.